The meeting's resumed. Okay. Okay, councillors, can you please, Councillor Pasternak, Councillor Crisanti, please take your seat. Councillor Fletcher, is your seat? Councillor Fletcher? Okay. Okay, so we have bare quorum here, so before we start the next item, we're going to do the confirming bylaw. May I have a motion to introduce the conformity bills? Councillor Thompson? Sure.
May I move the motion now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Speaker. Members of Council, I'm about to move that motion for the bills. That leave be granted to introduce bills to confirm to the point of the introduction of this motion, the proceedings of City Council meeting 30 on May 21st and 22nd, 2025.
Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? All in favor? Show of hands carried. Shall these bills be declared as bylaws and be passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006? All in favor?
All right, fine.
Carried. Okay, members, we are in a situation where we have bare quorum and we may lose quorum. So, yes, but even with that, so if we don't have quorum, we're going to have to come back tomorrow. And we don't have, I know that there's a couple of motions to be added, but unless we have 18, there's no chance. Okay, we'll continue GG 21.9. Councillor Perks, you held the item down. Do we have questions to staff? Councillor Holiday, questions to staff.
Okay, can I just get the report open?
Go ahead, questions.
Yes, thank you. Can you just let the staff get seated, Speaker? I gotta give them a chance to answer the question. May I begin? So there's a supplemental report, and it tells us that the ridership for this people mover is expected, I'm going by memory here, something in the vicinity of 12,000 per year? 13,000, something like that, yes?
Speaker, yes, 14,000 was the estimate based on historical use of the previous.
Gross revenue is?
Gross revenue, we estimate, could be up to around 90,000 a year.
90,000.
Correct.
Okay. These are really important. In the report, the old system was described as an amusement. The new system is something different, right?
Speaker, yes, the new system is a people mover.
Okay, so that's a form of transportation?
Correct.
Is it intended to fill the last mile in High Park?
It was not intended to solve all access issues within the park, but to increase access within the park.
Okay, and it's operating on roads?
Correct. Pathways within the park.
Okay, and people pay to use this service, right?
That's correct.
So it's like a transportation?
That's correct.
Has anyone checked with the TTC to ensure that this is aligned with their collective agreement and contracting out transportation?
Through the chair, this would not, because it's not meant to be public transportation.
It's not? It's not. Okay. Let's get back to the contract. So the contract has a number of requirements in it. It talks about a number of positions that are required, operators, supervisors, bookkeepers. I'm going by memory here. It also requires this company to go and procure new equipment, I think electrified equipment.
Correct. The RFP required the investment in the capital required and the eventual electrification of the fleet.
How much capital is required?
Through Speaker, we don't know what the capital costs are. That would be for the operator to determine, and that was part of their proposal to us.
Okay. Has anyone reality tested something with $90,000 of income and whether or not this operator, just a reasonable person could conclude that they're going to meet all the obligations that are set out before them?
Speaker, this operator has 40 years of experience operating in High Park and has determined that based on the provisions of the RFP in terms of how much service we're looking for, the visitor estimates within the park, that this is a viable business model, and that's on the basis that they submitted their proposal.
Has anyone on staff reality tested that?
Speaker, we responded to Council's direction to provide this supplementary report and have provided the information that we can based on what is available to us, and are continuing to make the recommendation that this is something that should proceed, and to respond to Council's direction that we provide accessible shuttle service within High Park.
What happens if this operator can't meet the obligations?
Speaker, we are entering into negotiations with the operator following Council's direction, and the terms and conditions by which would set out what those clauses are around failure to perform.
So we don't know. I think you just told me we don't know. Council doesn't know.
That's part of the negotiation process.
So you've brought a report to Council that says it has 12,000 rides per year. If my math is right, that's like a utilization rate of 5%. And if I remember this report, you're trying to double the capacity of the vehicles and double the frequency. So that would make the utilization rate drop down to, 1.5%?
Speakers, again, so it's based on previous data, 14,000 rides per year in the peak season only, which is primarily the summer, on a much shorter schedule for much shorter duration. The new model is 2 trains offering additional services more frequently. There's certainly more opportunity for this operator to generate the kind of revenue required to sustain the business.
Any idea like how many rides they'd have to generate to sustain the business? Like, has anyone thought any of this out?
Speaker, we put an RFP out with requirements. The respondent provided a submission that met the city's criteria, and it is up to them to determine the viability of the business based on the information that we've provided. It was evaluated accordingly, and therefore we're bringing that recommendation forward.
So to paraphrase back, we're relying on the bid and the operator, but we haven't done any verification analysis from our side to ensure that this is going to work.
That was your last question.
Speaker, we've evaluated based on the criteria set out through the RFP and are, again, comfortable that based on the information we have, that this is a viable venture, and we'll work with that operator through the negotiation and support them through the implementation of their business so that they are successful.
Thank you. So for members of council, there is pizza back there. Councillor Candavel, questions?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Since cars were banned from High Park, this has created some questions on how to get around. This is welcome, but some questions on the numbers behind what we're seeing. And I'm sorry if I missed this in Councillor Holliday's questions, but how many people would be accommodated roughly on one of these, vehicles or people movers?
Speaker, approximately 70 passengers can be accommodated on each vehicle, and again, there would be 2 operating simultaneously, so it's approximately 140 passengers would be transported at any one time.
And from what time to what time are they scheduled to be running?
Speaker, the times set out are going to vary based on the season, but it's the frequency of the trips that we have asked to be every 15 minutes during the prime time. For example, during the peak bloom of the cherry blossoms over the summer period, and then 30 minutes in less peak travel and piloting a winter service. Do we have an understanding of how much they're going to charge an individual or a family? Speaker, the rates were submitted as part of the initial report to GGC. Can that be shared? Just give me a second and we'll call those up. 885 plus HST for an adult, 619 for youth, 442 for a child and $6.19 for seniors. And there is also the requirement of providing family discounts, and that would be part of the negotiation with the operator.
But do we recognize that would be costly for low income, lower middle income families? Do we recognize that?
Speaker, yeah, affordability was one of the requirements. So we have included 50% discounts on Tuesdays for seniors. As I mentioned, family pass discounts, 1 free child fare for a family traveling with 2 adults and 3 children, discounts to Indigenous community members, discount fare for caregivers accompanying those with disabilities, and free fares to individuals with disability on things like International Day of Persons with Disability. These were part of their proposal, and I believe we have some direction to further that where possible in our negotiations with the operator. I can also say we benchmarked these rates against other services such as those offered at the zoo and other such people mover services, and they were within the benchmark.
Mm-hmm. As of now, in what's proposed, is there consideration for more people movers if the demand is there?
Speaker, at High Park, absolutely, but I can say Council's direction when we put the RFP out was to include in it opportunities to expand service at other parks where there is a similar need, and the operator has already expressed interest in doing that as we go forward.
Mm-hmm. Coming back to the pricing, in my opinion, it doesn't strike me as making affordable, particularly the one on 3 kids. Is there consideration to come back to council as part of the fall budget process to make this more accessible for next year, given its success?
Speaker, once we negotiate the contract, then we would be fairly locked into those terms. Any further subsidy, and I should say the city isn't setting the rates, the operator is setting those rates.
Right.
We would be consulted on rate changes and
Right.
that sort of thing. But any further consideration through budget process would effectively mean a subsidy that the city would need to provide to that operator to offset any lost revenue.
Okay, so the avenue for us as a council to bring down the pricing would be through a subsidy vis-a-vis budget.
That's my initial reaction. It would be something we would have to explore.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cheng.
Thank you. Through the chair, is the shuttle an open air shuttle or is it a bus?
Speaker, the shuttle will be protected but open sides. It's not a bus.
And will it still be perceived as fun or more as a mode of transportation?
The utility of it is as a mode of transportation to improve accessibility of the park. However, we would want it to be a pleasant experience for those using it, given it would be very family friendly and taking, kids and families through the park. So we want it to have an element of fun to it and utility.
Will it still look like a train? Is it a train experience that children would want to participate in?
We will begin to work with the operator on what the visuals, i.e. the wrap of this, are going to look like. It looks like more of a tram, not an amusement park train, I would say.
So in reading TripAdvisor or other articles about High Park, there's a lot of emphasis on the fun trackless train, and children will love a tour of the park to on the train. And as a mom, when my son was really young, he loved a good train ride. I would take train rides that went nowhere because he loved a good train ride. And so the current ridership that we've built up to this point in time has not been built on the premise of transportation or accessibility. It's been on the premise of fun. And so what is the mix in terms of this new plan of how are we going to make sure we keep our existing market share, the fun seekers, along, while adding to that complement those who need that accessibility?
Speaker, we've already been in discussions with the operator. They are willing, first of all, to work with us to make sure the look is suitable for a park environment. And so we've talked about imagery that is reflective of the types of things children might see in the park. The fact that it's traversing the park is the beautiful scenery around it, so that we think will be appealing. And also they're looking at things like audio tours as part of the experience. So this is going to be an experience that has utility, both from an accessibility perspective, but also from an experience perspective.
So is it possible the tram could look like a train that would still capture the magic that children seek?
We will work on a very creative approach. We're creative in Parks and Recreation, so we will work on a creative approach.
That's good to hear. And so we believe that we will preserve the existing market share in this new vehicle?
We do, and again, this operator has 40 years experience in the park, so there is familiarity with the market, and we're confident that will actually help continue that ridership and expand it and grow it because it's offering much more service that people have asked for.
And the $91,000 of predicted revenue for the operator, is that based on existing market share or growth of the market based on what we're predicting?
It's a very conservative estimate based on the current ridership model, based on the expanded service offerings, but we think there's opportunity to grow that. And that's what we're going to work with the operator to do and help them through the messaging and marketing of the new service to the public.
And based on the motion that was passed at GGC, will there now then be consultations with the community before the launch to ensure that the locations of where the pickup and drop-off sites are such that meet the needs of the neighborhood?
Speaker, we have stakeholders that we engage regularly in High Park, and we'll certainly look at. We've got a rough route that was part of the RFP that we want to, at a minimum, make sure is adhered to. We also need to consider the pathways that are appropriate for the tram to move. But where there is flexibility and based on our knowledge of the needs of park visitors and users, we will set those stops and adjust over time as needed.
So I'm sorry, my question was, will there be consultation?
I'm not going to say there's a formal consultation program to implement the shuttle, but there will be engagement as appropriate.
I think our motion requested that consultations happen before the implementation.
Okay, that was your last question?
We'll circle back to that direction and make sure we're following it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Speaker. I just have a couple of questions, and I'm going to move that motion on the Leslie Spit on Tommy Thompson Park. I'm not sure if you're aware, or any of your staff are aware of the number of years that the request has been there from TRCA to actually have a shuttle to the end of the Spit, because there's no way to get there. It's a car free except for the sailing club at certain times of the day. Are you aware that that's been since 2000 and probably 18? That's been the request in?
Speaker, yes, we are aware that there had been direction given in about 2019 or 2018 to include some funding in the budget to reinstate a shuttle service that had existed previously. And I know those discussions with TRC occurred. The funding was not approved, and this RFP, that was more for a direct delivery approach. This RFP that Council directed us to implement was with the intention that we would have a third-party operator that could fulfill that gap.
So that money, you never put that in your budget, or why was that never in the budget?
Speaker, my understanding at the time, the funding was not approved.
By whom?
I can't say if it was through our internal processes or it didn't make it into the budget process, but we do not have the funding currently in the operating budget for a shuttle and have never had that funding.
Yes, because it's never been in the budget. So how are you planning to put that in We now have a shuttle in High Park, brand new. We've had a request in from the Tommy Thompson Park for 5 years, and it's never been acted on. Do you see that as a little problem?
Speaker, so the third-party operator would not then require operating subsidy from the city, and the intention would be, as is the case with High Park, that it would be self-sustaining in expanding to Tommy Thompson Park, Leslie Street Spit.
So they'd have to pay to go out to the end of the spit? Self-sustaining in what way?
Well, as is the case in High Park, the users of the shuttle would pay a fee to use the shuttle.
That was never the intention for the Leslie Spit, though. That was never how that shuttle ran. It was funded, was it not?
If the intention in 2019 was to offer the public a free shuttle through the $130,000, that is a different operating model than the High Park shuttle. The direction that we received when the RFP was put out to market was to look at opportunities to expand that same service, therefore that same model of a fee-for-service approach in Tommy Thompson. If that's not the intention, it would require operating funding in order to contract somebody to deliver it at no cost to the user.
Yes, there was $300,000 that would ask for year after year after year. And maybe I'll ask Mr. Conforti why that was never put in any budget, and now here we are talking about a shuttle for a much smaller area and no access for anybody who has mobility problems to get to the end of basically the largest wilderness in North America.
To the Speaker, again, I'll need to look back at the exact history or what. I am aware that there would have been a set of budget notes where the request was identified. It was identified as a request that had come through council, but that funding wasn't available. So there is a section in budget notes that lists where that direction is, but it said it's unfunded. So in 2019 or 2020, it would have been there.
And constantly every year. So it's never been a priority for the city to get people to the end of Tommy Thompson Park. Would I be correct to say that?
To the Speaker, you're correct in stating it was not prioritized within the funded
It's never
budget.
been a priority to get there because it doesn't have a budget number,
It was never included in the approved budget.
which means it was never a priority for parks either.
From a funding perspective against, sorry, Mr. Conforti wants to respond.
To the Speaker, just to be clear, it was identified in the TRCA's budget notes, not in the parks budget
That was
notes.
passed and asked for from the city in order to do that, because we do operate that park. So it was never a priority for parks, correct? Would I be correct to say that?
I wouldn't say it's never a priority. I'd say at the time, it was not a funded priority.
Well, if it's not funded, it's not a priority, so I
There's
don't want
competing-
to I don't want to dance on the head of a pin here.
I wasn't here at the time to speak to it, Councillor, but what I can say is that against competing priorities, it didn't make it above the line.
Even,
Okay, that was your last question. Thank you. Councillor Crisanti, questions?
Yes, Speaker, thank you. So would you describe Hyde Park as more than just a municipal park? It's a destination park?
Speaker, I would say given the visitorship that High Park experiences, yes, it is a destination.
Okay, so people, well, particularly people up in the area that I represent, up in North Ward 1, talk about Hyde Park a lot. They love to take their families there, and they need to drive. So they get to Hyde Park. Can you speak to a little bit about vehicle accessibility and when they could drive into the park and enjoy the park with their family?
Speaker, so the High Park movement strategy identified a vehicle restriction on weekends and holidays during the cherry blossoms as being the times in which the park is closed to vehicles. Parking lots are open 7 days a week. On the spring, it rode inside the park, and outside of those particular periods of vehicular restriction, the park is open to vehicles.
All right, so currently there is a train, it's called a trackless train amusement service that's currently available, which expires at the end of this year, well, in October of this year. That is going to be replaced with an improved and expanded people moving service. doesn't sound as exciting as the trackless train amusement option. However, people need to get to Hyde Park to even enjoy that portion of the park. And this train, is it a seasonal train? What happens in the winter? Does it operate year-round?
Speaker, yes, as reported to General Government Committee as being recommended as a year-round service, we're looking to pilot a winter service as part of this RFP. That's what we requested, and the operator has agreed to do that. It will operate weekends 12 to 3 p.m. with opportunities to expand in the winter period. Other than that, it operates fully on a very frequent schedule. And to your question around the positioning of this as something fun, as I mentioned earlier, certainly as we look to name it, the idea of the experience that people have, particularly children, will be top of mind for us, so that is attractive and useful.
And just to speak to a little bit to the affordability of this particular service, can you just give me an example? Say a family with 2 children, 2 adults, 4 people. What will it cost them in the current rates that we have, and what will the new rates be when the new service begins later this year?
Speaker, roughly. So just quickly, rough math, about $27 for a family of 4 of 2 adults, 2 children, plus tax would be what the rates would be. It also offers a 4-hour hop-on, hop-off, so it's not just a one-and-done trip. As I mentioned earlier, there are other discounting opportunities that are being negotiated and were proposed as part of their submission.
All right, do you have seniors discounts? Do you have student discounts? Because that's a lot of money for a family of 4. They get to the park, they use transit to get to the park. Now it's going to cost them, $30 to get around the park, hop on, hop off, 4 hours.
Speaker, yes. So we have a youth rate, child rate, seniors rate, which are all discounted off the adult rate. There is a seniors discount day of 50% on Tuesdays. And we, as directed, will continue to look for other opportunities to create further discounts, noting that there is currently fees to use the trackless train as well. So it is not a free service within High Park currently, although we recognize these fees are in addition higher than those. But as I mentioned, we're benchmarked against other similar people mover services that exist in other destinations such as Toronto Zoo.
Okay, last question. Last question here. In terms of in terms of vehicle accessibility, did you look at studying whether or not we could open the park up for full vehicle access and let people enjoy it? People with disabilities, people that can't afford to jump on a bus, and people that really want to utilize tourists and whoever have accessibility to Hyde Park 24/7, 7 days a week.
Speaker,
all year round.
Yeah, I mean, the focus of this report was on the award of the, people mover service. I can say that your question speaks to the Hyde Park movement strategy, which was approved by council.
Thank you. We're going to have to have quorum call. We don't have quorum. Yeah, well, we only have 7 people in the council chambers.
Members participating remotely, would you please turn your cameras on so we can count you for quorum?
Members of council, we barely have quorum, so if anybody wants to introduce a member's motion, we can do it. We don't have 18 members here.
I found Councillor Cole. We'll have to add Myers.
So I want to remind members of council that are virtual, you need to keep your cameras on because we barely have quorum. So if you turn off your cameras,
Councillor Cheng, would you mark yourself as present, please? Are you able to do that? Councillor Fletcher, can you mark yourself present, please?
well, we should have, yes.
Councillor Moyes, are you present in the meeting? Speaker, you have 18 members in the meeting.
I want to remind members of council that are virtual, you need to keep your cameras on. Yeah. Either that or come up to the council chambers. Councillor Perks, question.
Yeah, Speaker, I hate to do this. I really hope this would go through easily. I hate it like a blazing sun in my head full of hate. That much hating that we have to do this. Okay, let's establish a few things. This is not the whole movement strategy. This is just one piece, correct?
Speaker, yes, that's correct.
Okay. In fact, the movement strategy is not in front of us. All that is in front of us is a contract award for expanding this service.
That's correct.
The contract for expanding this service does not preclude the TTC from running service in High Park.
That's correct, and they're continuing that service.
We have a number of other mobility initiatives in High Park that we're considering. We've added more accessible parking spaces. We have parking at the south end. Wheel-Trans runs in there. There's a whole suite of ways that we are making High Park accessible, correct?
That's correct.
This new service actually expands the frequency of service, the times of year of the service, and the times during the week of the service.
Speaker, yes, that's correct.
If we don't approve this contract, we only had the one bid. We're not likely to get anyone else coming in to do this.
That's correct.
If members of council want to lower the price, we could, at budget time, go out and buy a whole lot of passes and make it free, but members of council would have to decide that's a budget priority.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Let's vote right now.
Okay,
You have to put yourself on the list to speak.
we haven't had any speakers yet. These were just questions. Councillor Perks to speak?
No, I'll let Mike do that. Members, I know that not everybody here agrees with the way High Park is being managed, and that's fine. There are opportunities in the future for us to debate the next phases of the High Park movement strategy. And if you've got an opinion at that time, I'm happy to have the conversation with you. You have one thing that you are deciding now. Only one thing. Do we sign this contract? Let's look at the two scenarios. If we sign the contract, we make it easier for people to travel in High Park. If we don't sign the contract, we make it harder for people to travel in High Park. This is the difficult decision that is in front of all of you right now. It's a real puzzler. I don't know why, but for some reason, a lot of members of council spent a lot of time at government management struggling with this very difficult decision about whether we make it easier or harder for people to get around in High Park. And evidently, a lot of members have questions right now, trying with that tough problem about whether we make it easier or harder for people to get around High Park. I struggled with it too, but I did come to the conclusion it is better to make it easier for people to travel in High Park than it is to make it harder for people to travel in High Park. I hope you share my reasoning.
Councillor Holiday to speak.
Sure, if I could have the clerks put my motion on the screen. City Council deem this service under this contract as an amusement. So I will, can you put my time on hold? And I'm going to raise a point of privilege. So the point of privilege is I've had just about enough of the ongoings of the member behind me. The last comment was, you are an amusement. It's been going on through this meeting, and I've kind of had enough, and I just ask if you could ask members not to interrupt others or insult them while they're speaking.
Okay? He's not behind you, so that's good.
That's fine. Thank you. Speaker, this is a serious issue, and, you know, Councillor Perks simplified it down into whether to award a contract or not. Our job as council is to conduct due diligence and think these things through. I'll remind council, it came out today, that part of the story here is that this contract is supposed to fill and tick a box under the High Park strategy of moving people the last mile. I don't think it meets that role, and I can't accept it as meeting that role, and that's what you're doing if you accept this contract, and hence my motion to say it's an amusement. I got no problem with the trackless train that's running there right now, and it's done on amusement grounds. But here's the really important piece. I asked members of council to do their due diligence. The report tells us that this contractor's projected revenue is $90,000, and if you take the 15% off of that, you're down to about $77,000. Wonderful. But in this contract, they have to have a whole bunch of deliverables. That is to double their capacity. They have to change from the existing equipment, which has been there for a long time, clearly from the pictures, to new equipment, which is electrical, install chargers, and do a whole bunch of things. How can any reasonable person reach a conclusion that all of that is doable at an income of $77,000 a year and still pay people to do this job? So I have to apply critical thinking. And let's think ahead. You know, what's going to happen? Some miracle, this operator may be able to pull it off. Fantastic. If they can't pull it off, then we're back at council trying to problem solve. And so what's the next outcome? Do we then purchase equipment? Do we then bring this in-source this into the public service? Do we turn this into something else? I don't have answers to any of those questions. I kept asking them on the floor here and at government management. I can't get any satisfactory answers that give me assurance that this is possibly a viable solution. So my solution to the council is look, you want to put this contract through, and if they're going to bear all of the risks, treat it as an amusement. If they can make a go at it, good for them. And it will enhance the park, and it'll be something joyful for people to enjoy. They have to pay. But if we're going to try to tick off the box and say that this is now resolving one of the items under the High Park strategy, this last mile question, when you close off the perimeter about how you get people into the heart of the park to do all of the activities if they just can't walk, you know, the hundreds of meters to do that, well, I don't think this meets the mark, and I'm not sure that it's even going to be here in time to meet that mark. You know, just one other thing on High Park to think about. You know, if we don't provide access, and if we end up charging people to realistically access the park, have we met the conditions of when this High Park was turned over? So if you look at the history, purchased in 1836 by the Howards, it was given to the city in 1873 by the Howards with a bunch of conditions. It got to be called High Park, no alcohol in the park, but it has to be free for the residents to use and enjoy for the City of Toronto forever. And there's some really interesting questions as to whether or not it's free for a family if they got to pay $40 to go on to, you know, let's make it up a number here, but, you know, a bunch of money to go and ride this tram to get in on the last mile if we close the perimeter. So I'll go back to my suggestion to council. Don't say that this High Park tick box for the movement strategy is done. Deem this an amusement. You can decide whether or not it is prudent and wise to grant this contract. But from what I heard from the staff's answers and from the supplemental report, I'm not satisfied that we're going into this responsibly with our eyes open, and an average person can look at the numbers in here and figure out that something just doesn't add up, and that there's a whole bunch of deliverables that I just cannot see how that's going to work. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Burnside.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'd like to call the question.
Question is called.
Councillor Morley, please.
Councillor Myers, how do you vote, please?
In favor?
And Mayor Chow, how do you vote? The motion to end debate carries. The vote is 12-6. The required 2/3 threshold has been achieved.
Vote on Councillor Holiday's motion. Okay, hello. Councillor Candeval, come down. Councillor Cole. Okay. The clerk, want to explain it?
Speaker, earlier in the meeting, Councillor Fletcher moved an amendment on this item during an attempt to release it during quick release. So we'll display that motion first, followed by Councillor Holiday's.
So we'll put Councillor Fletcher's motion on the screen. On favor? Recorded vote.
Councillor Myers, how do you vote, please?
In favor?
In favor. Thank you. The amendment carries. The vote is 18-1.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Holiday's motion. Recorded vote.
Counselor Mantis, please.
Councillor Perruzza, are you in the meeting? Thank you. Councillor Myers, how do you vote, please?
Opposed.
Opposed? Motion 2 does not carry. The vote is 5-14.
On the item? On the item, recorded vote. As amended.
Councillor Perruzza, please. Councillor Myers, how do you vote, please?
In favor.
The item is amended as adopted. The vote is 15-4.
Okay. Our next item is PH 21.4. Oh, yes, quick release, Councillor Cole. Okay, hold on. NY 23.7, you want to release?
I think that's the one.
Yeah, that's it,
That's one I
yeah.
have on hold.
Okay, on favor, this is a growing Glencairn Phase 1. On favor, carried. Okay, our next item is, pardon? Oh, Councillor Perks, quick release?
Yes, this is MM 30.24, piloting a red tape hotline.
Yes?
And there's a motion there. Oh, no, didn't we do that one already? No.
We did 302, member 3024.
Yeah, no, but the other one is the one.
The other one that you held down was 30.6.
Yes, 30.6. I have a motion on 30.6. So this is,
No, 24 we've already done.
yeah, it's showing up on our screen as
haven't?
not complete.
I got it crossed off.
Speaker, MM 30.24 is still held. When Councillor Perks tried to release it, Councillor Fletcher indicated a desire to speak to it.
Okay, so I've got two then. I'll do 30.6 first, which is commencing public consultations for communities impacted by new shelter locations. Just give me a minute, I'll explain what's going on, okay? So Councillor Pasternak and I talked about this. I have a motion, you can put it up. The difference between the motion that Councillor Pasternak had and the one I'm moving lies at the last sentence. In addition to the already planned May 28th virtual event and prior to the July 15th, 2025 meeting of the Planning and Housing Committee, if desired. So this still gives the 6 councillors in question the opportunity to have that extra meeting. It just puts a timeline on it so that we're able to meet the timelines to get the projects funded, approved, and done. Okay? And Councillor Pasternak agreed to this. He felt it met the intention of what he had proposed. It just gives staff a little bit of planning certainty.
Okay, so on MM 30.6, Councillor Perks is moving the amendment to the motion.
Then it's not fast, and we'll debate it. Okay. Yeah, and the other one was the red tape one.
MM 30.24.
Yeah, and I had a motion on that, which this is the one. Yeah, this is the one where we didn't want to accidentally put Pat Tobin in charge of everything. Because the way the original motion was written, we were delegating the authority to make any decision that affects a business to the general manager of economic development and culture. And, you know, I think Toronto would be run really well if Pat Tobin was in charge of everything. But some people thought it might be awkward if he started giving the city manager instructions. So we have changed who gets delegated. The same effect as what Councillor Carroll was after, but without the accidental change in authority. And, you know, we would have had to pay him a
Okay,
lot
Councillor
more.
Perks, what is your amendment?
That's the amendment I moved already.
I haven't seen it.
You did. We had it up before.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the amendment by Councillor Perks, MM 30.24, all in favor? So do you... On favor?
I was holding it.
Oh, God. Councillor Perks, on favor, carried. Item is amended, on favor, carried. Oh, dear God, help us. Councillor Fletcher, you have a quick release?
It was going to be that one. So it's- We're good. Only 8 left.
You haven't held anything down.
I thought I was holding the last one, but apparently I just said it wasn't a quick item. So Councillor Perks has moved that and fixed all the governance issues that were in the original motion, and which I support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Candeville, do you have a quick release?
And the motion to include the local ward councillor has been pre-circulated.
Okay, on favor, carried. Item is amended, on favor, carried.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you say you had two?
Yeah.
What is the other one? Well, the other one is the members' motion,
Yeah.
30.25.
Can I release that, or do I have to wait?
No, you can do it now.
Okay,
Let's just
yeah.
get this over with.
Okay, yeah. There's a pre-circulated motion following advice, feedback from EDC and Mayor's Office. Hope everyone can support it.
Okay, it's on the screen, MM 30.25. The amendment, on favor, carried. Item is amended. Oh, that's the item? Sorry, okay. All right, now we go, let me see where we are in here. Councillor Holiday, you held down IE 21.10, air conditioning for pilot program for low-income seniors. Okay, Councillor Holiday.
No questions?
No questions? Does anybody have any questions?
To speak.
Okay, to speak, Councillor Holiday.
I will. Thank you, Speaker. I understand it is really hard through the summer months, and I understand there are people in this city that really need air conditioning. But I am hesitant to support such a report because I believe, A, this is the thin edge of the wedge. There is a lot of need out there. And secondly, I question the role of the municipal government in providing air conditioning units to individuals. I think we're just stepping way out of our space with this. And I note it's a pilot project, but where does it go? And how far does the eligibility criteria extend? And if you really think this through, what you realize is that if there's certain people that meet the low income threshold and there's others that are just above that, it's their taxes and it's their indirect taxes through their rent that are going to pay for the others, and maybe they don't have air conditioning of their own. And so what we do is we make it more expensive for some people and we provide this benefit to the other. I hope people get air conditioners. I think that belongs probably in the charity space or into other negotiations that they might have with their landlord. I just can't support the program in good conscience. Thank you, Speaker. Recorded vote.
Wait, I have a motion.
Who wants to speak?
This is regarding the report where it talks about the geographic equity of distribution of these air conditioning units, and just wanted to affirm that this is happening through a motion. So the allocation of the 500 units, that there would be based on the number of air conditioning units, and based on the need across the city, that to make sure that every community council area would have a equitable distribution, and that was in the report suggested by staff, and just affirming that this will happen in a motion. I asked staff if this motion was
Okay, hold on.
necessary, and they
Councillor
drafted
Perks
it.
has a question for you.
Sure.
Councillor Perks.
I really am just trying to understand.
Yes.
So you're saying the report already has the requirement for geographic distribution?
Yes, and I
And
asked staff
PH 21.
if it was clear that this was happening or not, and they drafted this motion for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Strikes me as redundant, but whatever.
Thank you.
Amendment on favor, carried. On the item, as amended, recorded vote.
Councillor Myers, how do you vote, please?
In favor?
In favor. The item is amended, is adopted. The vote is 16-2.
Okay. Our next item is P8. Oh, yeah, okay, Deputy Mayor Malik, you want to introduce your motion now? We just have 18 votes, as long as everybody keeps the video on. There's something going on at Nathan Phillips Square last, yeah. Okay, Deputy Mayor, I know, but people don't listen.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Malik, do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, I'm introducing this motion for an event that's happening in Nathan Phillips Square next week, and to ensure that it can proceed.
Okay, on favor, carried. All right, PH 21.4. And in the future, we're not going to have members motion the last minute of the last day. These motions have to be done, way in advance, because it's not fair to the clerk.
Staff requested that I bring it forward, so I just want to be
fair to everybody else. So PH 21.4, Councillor Perks, you held the item down. A framework to build more affordable rental homes. Does anybody have any questions on it? Councillor Candeval, questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. One of the questions I have on this item is what is the matrix or criteria and how sites are being selected for to be included as Toronto builds?
Thank you for the question. The city has a consolidated real estate strategy that identifies sites. City reported EX, I forget the number, pardon me? 9.3 previously, and through public and confidential attachment, identified 100 sites for future
Broadly,
development.
what are the themes that we're looking at?
The criteria,
Yeah.
the themes?
Thematically, yeah.
It's city-owned through partnership or directly by the city with potential for redevelopment.
One of the concerns I know locally, and I know when I was on the school board, when this was entertained 3-4 years ago, was that sites at that time, obviously school sites, were being selected that were in lower income neighborhoods, and the concern was that they would be more easily accessible than, say, a community that with high social capital and the ability to organize and challenge. How is planning staff looking at this to ensure that we're looking at sites, selecting sites from all class, income levels, and neighborhoods?
The identified city sites, Councillor, through the chair, come from across the city in all neighborhoods, and again are identifying surplus or underutilized parcels of city land that have development potential. In terms of your reference to school lands, the report does recommend a non-binding MOU with the Toronto District School Board and the Toronto Lands Corporation, which are an independent organization which will identify properties of their own merit. We did send out a memo earlier today identifying the 8 sites that the Toronto Lands Corporation has put forward. And from my quick scan, it would appear that the 8 sites come from, again, all areas of the city in all different neighborhoods and different income brackets.
How are we ensuring those sites and whatever portion is allocated is not going to impact on the operations or say, green space for the children of the school? Are we ensuring that we're looking at the interests of the school and the students?
Again, the early days in the partnership with the MOU, and again through the chair, but the Toronto Builds report solidifies a number of different housing programs developed over time with the city with an intention to build complete communities. By complete communities, that would mean green space and amenities, both for the residents of the community and their neighbors. And in the case of any co-location with schools, obviously the amenity space required for school-aged children.
Will we consider the utilization capacity of the school? So for example, if a school's already at 110%, by building, say, a couple hundred more units, or adding to the school population, thus necessitating portables, will that be a consideration, school utilization?
Again, Councillor, through the chair, maybe I'll turn it over to my Deputy City Manager to comment first, and maybe I'll append.
Thank you, and through the chair, as the Executive Director has indicated that these are sites selected through the school and through their corporation. So we're expecting that they would have gone through that analysis to determine whether that land was surplus to their needs or not, and have been those sites being put forward under those conditions.
Thank you, thank you. And on the comment of complete communities, how are we ensuring that as part of this process, the relevant infrastructure and amenities are part of this, of any X project?
One of the recommendations in the report, Councillor, is to ensure that through partnership with other city divisions and through the budget process, the necessary infrastructure to support those new communities is in place.
Mm-hmm. And finally, what is the current thinking of how we would adapt, pivot once the federal government announces the framework of their Canada Builds approach?
Thanks for the question. And again, maybe I'll start and maybe ask the Deputy City Manager to append. But what I would say is this creates a framework, a robust framework that will support net new development and affordable development in the city. And we would hope that other orders of government would partner and align their funding and programs to support these efforts.
And through the chair, the only thing I
Thank
could
you.
add is
sorry.
we don't know the particulars, and certainly collaboratively with not only Create TO, TCHC, and our Housing Secretariat, we would assess the impact of any programs that the federal government would put forward and bring our best advice forward.
Councillor Morley. Questions?
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Through you to staff. On this initiative, how are staff working to ensure that where we're losing, as was mentioned, whether it's public space through a potential park or parking lots, how is staff working to balance those needs within the community?
Thanks for the question, and again through the chair. In terms of the location of available city sites that are currently provided to parking, TPA in 2023 reviewed its assets to determine which lots were surplus to its operational needs, and through this exercise identified lands that could be repurposed for new affordable housing. In addition to that, again through the development review process and consultations with local community, issues related to parking and other local impacts would be considered.
Thank you. So, sorry, just want to pull that thread a little bit. What is the expected level of community consultation with local councillor, and sort of general flexibility to the sites that we're looking at this time through this proposal?
Great question, Councillor, and through the chair. The Toronto Builds report and the recommendations before you are a policy frame that bring together a number of different housing programs under one umbrella, so that our development community and council have clarity on the requirements and targets that will be guiding our development moving forward. Nothing in the report impacts the existing consultation and requirements related to the actual development of lands. Additionally, there will be a report brought forward by the Deputy City Manager in July, subsequent to the approval of this overall frame, that provides more details on implementation.
Thank you. And can you give us a little bit of a quick lesson on when the last time the city was in the business of building housing was, and what the impact of our sort of lack of proactive measures has been?
I would say well, before my time, maybe literally, the last massive public build began in the late 60s and early 70s with the creation of public housing and social housing, which led to a significant share of non-market housing. Over the last 20 or 30 years, there has not been a significant addition to that affordable non-market housing. And that has certainly impacted the availability of affordable housing, in particular for those who have the least income.
Would you say, was it fair to say that the policy framework before us sets us up for the ability to actually deliver tangible results as it relates to accessible and affordable housing in our city?
Through the chair, councillor, I think that is correct. And again, I think the frame here is that building housing takes intergovernmental partnership, and this builds policy hopefully can be reflected in future federal and provincial funding and programs, so that it can further the efforts we're making locally to make housing available and affordable housing available to those most in need.
Thank you for this work. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Councillor Crisanti, questions?
Yes, Speaker. So I just glanced through this list. There's a number of properties on the list. Can you tell me a little bit about the list itself? Excuse me. Are these all active files and all properties that are all being considered seriously for conversion to whatever you need to convert it to allow for the development of housing?
Thank you, Councillor, for the question, and through the chair. The subset of list in the appendix comes through the City Council identified sites in EX 9.3. So the ones included are the appendix are sites that are identified for the opportunity to increase housing and apply the BUILDS framework. Site-by-site specifics will change the trajectory of the development and partnership selection for those sites, but they are all ready to be advanced.
So is there any chance of any of these sites being excluded at any given time in the future?
Certainly, Councillor, and through the report, we've identified that we will report back annually on the list, and that there will be the opportunity to add new sites or move sites off based on the nature of the pro forma and ability to advance appropriate development on those parcels.
Are there any city-owned parking lots here under Toronto Parking Authority that are on this list as well?
Councillor, yes.
Okay, but you will look at those sites particularly with respect to the potential of removing those active and parking lots that are providing revenue to the city and also providing a very important service to those local communities in terms of providing parking. How are you going to handle those considerations?
And Councillor, through the chair, those properties were assessed, I believe, through a framework where they were identified through the Toronto Parking Authority as surplus to their needs, so they should represent minimal impact.
Okay, I'm just not clear on what you mean by surplus to their needs. These are, if some of these parking lots, they're not empty, they are active, they're being used, they're providing revenue.
Through you, Madam Speaker, a number of the parking lots that are on this list have, what we mean by surplus to their needs, the parking authority goes through their own analysis, which we don't have precise information on what that is, but it certainly involves utilization rates and net income that they generate. And so they've made a determination that a number of parking lots were surplus to their needs. They would have provided those to our organization, to create TO, and we would have done an analysis to determine the highest and best use, whether that would be housing or if it wasn't suitable for housing, for parkland or other important city needs. Those would be some of those sites. Other sites on this list that are parking lots would have been directed by council through the course of the last number of years directly to us to be looked at for housing.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Speaker.
Councillor Holiday, questions?
Yeah, I know it's unusual to ask a question of staff about the words in a motion, but I just wondered if staff have seen the advanced circulated motion by Councillor Myers. I see a nod. So I just wondered if you could help interpret on how you interpret what it asks you. It says there's a mandatory 10% equity target in all large-scale Toronto builds. Could you tell me what that means?
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and through the chair. This is consistent with the community benefits framework and was also included in the Housing Now sites that now fall under the Toronto Build Report.
Could you just elaborate, help me understand, what does a 10% equity target mean?
Yeah, I can address that through you, Madam Chair. On our Housing Now sites, there is a requirement for the developer and builder to ensure that they are hiring 10% of the workers are from equity deserving groups, and they are required to sign a community benefits agreement with the city to that effect.
Okay, so it's that simple. Because, and I'm sorry, because it said 10% equity target, and then it talked about equity hiring targets. So they are, what you're telling me, at least your interpretation of Councillor Myers' motion is that that's one and the same.
Yeah, through you, Madam Speaker, I have not seen Councillor Myers' motion. I can tell you that that is what we have done with the community benefits framework and on our housing, formerly known Housing Now sites. We also ascribe a target of 10% to social procurement to ensure that there's also hiring from companies and organizations that are owned and operated by equity deserving groups.
Okay. One other question. There, and I'm sorry, I don't have the exact clause in front of me, but there was this idea in here that there would be co-location of other city facilities along with housing. So how do I understand that? Could we see an apartment building on top of a community center?
Yeah, I think, through you, Madam Speaker, I think the idea is that we are attempting to build complete communities on these locations, and we work with all of our city divisions to understand their needs and thereby try to maximize and optimize the value of the real estate by co-locating suitable uses on one site. So if we can co-locate important city program needs along with housing, then we attempt to do that to create additional value in the real estate.
So I understand that in an urban, like an inner city setting, what happens out in the suburbs? So like this very council meeting, we moved 4 parcels of land over to the province, presumably for housing. 2 of them were park sites. Up until now, I couldn't imagine building an apartment building on top of a park. Does this report suggest a vector for something like that to occur?
Through you, Madam Speaker, I do not believe it does that. It does not prescribe any land use policy changes.
I'm not saying it prescribes, but does it contemplate those sort of things that would come to this floor for decision?
No, this report does not do that.
How about sites that are not residential right now that are some other use, I don't know, on the edge of an industrial area or something, where we're thinking of building it for municipal purposes, but all of a sudden we find housing on top of it?
Through the chair, and Councillor, thank you for the question. This would be, consideration with not only our chief planner and his group as to the appropriateness of housing, say, close to an industrial setting and whether it is appropriate in that area or not. But certainly we would look at opportunities to repurpose sites wherever appropriate. However, it would have to meet either the zoning requirements and the intended purpose for those areas.
Thank you.
Councillor Speaker Nunziata.
Yeah, just a couple questions. Just for clarification, when Councillor Crisanti was asking you those questions about GPA parking lots. So am I not correct to say that these parking lots that have been designated surplus for parking lots that were actually losing revenue and that were not being used?
I would say for the most part that they, through you, Madam Speaker, for the most part that there are some sites on the list that were parking lots that were directed by council over, as I said, the past number of years. We don't necessarily have the financial information on those lots, but certainly everything that, any sites that have been advanced have been done so in consultation with the Toronto Parking Authority.
Right, yeah. And there was a report that came forward at council. Was that a year ago or 2 years ago when we asked city staff, TPA, to bring forward a list of all parking lots that were unutilized and
that's right.
And that we would look at developing these sites. Right?
That's right. And there will be a follow-up report coming forward in the coming cycle related to analysis on further analysis on TPA lots.
Yeah, I just want a clarification on that because I know some questions were asked on that. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mayor, through you to staff. Can you help me to understand the plans as it relates to specifically 158 Borough Drive? That is a staff parking lot now. Moving forward, the Civic Center and the amenities around will need to have parking. What will be the plan going forward to address that issue in terms of parking, because there's a need for that during the construction phase when this does go ahead?
Through you, Madam Speaker. So we are aware of the parking needs for not only the development but for the area. There is also a staff parking component that is still being solutioned. So those are issues that we're quite seized with, and there will be parking in the development, and there is other parking we are looking to solution in the neighborhood to address those growing needs or those needs that have been identified at this point. So we're working on it. We know that it's an issue, and we're addressing it.
Fair enough. I won't belabor the point, but I know it's extremely challenging because we were trying to sort that out in some time ago, because this is not the first go around for this particular site. But let me just turn my attention to recommendation number 11, and it talks about the CFO and the deputy city manager and about the growth and so on. Am I to take that going forward with respect to these particular projects and infrastructure requirements, the city is actually going to put in place funding for amenity space such as community facilities and so on? Or is it the responsibility of the, I guess, the partner and or whoever that stakeholder, private sector is, to collaborate? Is it the sole responsibility of the city to fund this? I'm not sure who I'm asking. Maybe Mr. Conforti. Thank you.
To the speaker, and sorry, Councillor, to make sure I understand the question.
Sure.
In terms of the amenities, if we're speaking of the local infrastructure, that would be the requirement of the developer itself.
Okay.
If it's the infrastructure to support the development or to support the community, those would traditionally be borne by the city, and with funding coming from development charges or through CBCs or other growth funding tools that may be available.
Fair enough. Can you then help me to understand then the ownership? So again, staying with 158 Borough Drive, what is that relationship? Are we selling the lands? Are we going to have investment coming into the lands and in exchange for a number of, let's say, affordable units on site? What's the sort of, what's the financial relationship and the, I guess, the accommodation relationship with the partner?
Through the chair, thank you for the question, Councillor. And what's been outlined from EX 9.3 and reinforced in this framework is that we, at every opportunity, we retain public land. And so, although the land has been valued as part of the consideration through Createo's due diligence, it would continue to be under city ownership as far as going out from an RFP perspective.
Fair enough. And I guess my final question, I guess, Mr. Gupta, this may be for you or maybe the Deputy City Manager. When we look at these sites, are we pre-planning and pre-preparing sort of illustration and drawings as to conceptually what we'd like to see on the site? Or do we actually put it out and that particular applicant, stakeholder, do they come in with drawings and submissions and we approve them, or they come in and say, this is exactly what we want to do, this is what we can afford? Do we have an opportunity to disagree and ask them to come back with additional options?
Yeah, through you, Madam Speaker, we typically entitle the site. So we do the work to de-risk the sites to try to maximize the value for ourselves, the city, so that value can be used to buy up as much affordable housing or other important city amenities. So we will zone the site and essentially create a density box for that then is included in our market offerings, and then we seek those responses through the RFP process and evaluate them accordingly.
So we have much more control then. Would that be
we have much more
statement?
we have much more control.
Fantastic.
Right.
Thank you, Speaker. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like we're going to go on all night with this item. Councillor Cheng.
Madam Speaker, I'm just wanting to inquire about potential community amenities that would be added into these projects. And would those be based on community consultation, existing facilities master plans? How will it be determined which amenities are suitable? Because we know we're not growing more land across the city, so every piece of municipal land is so precious, and the opportunity to build amenities is really important.
Thanks for the question, Councillor, and through the chair. So again, this builds report provides a policy frame for the development of city-owned sites. I think the questions you're asking are related to the development review process and some of the implementation pieces in terms of the site-specific development. So that's outside the build frame that's before Council today.
So when will the implementation process at large be brought to Council, or is this going to be a site-specific, every neighborhood has to have a unique process?
Every development is unique, and every development will have a site-specific process.
So we're not able to establish an at-large city process to ensure that there's an equitable, transparent way that all the projects would have similar considerations of the local councillor, the local community, in terms of landing on how those amenities can be achieved.
Councillor, what I can say about the report is that it's clear from the Builds report we are envisioning a policy that builds complete communities. And I would say complete communities will encompass some of the amenities you may be referring to, but the specific amenities will be related to the nature of its site, its scale, its size, its scope, and what other services are currently available in the community. So it's very difficult in a policy instrument to get into site-specific requirements, given the nature of development through the builds policy will be quite varied and encompass different areas of the city with different social infrastructure.
So just to be clear, I'm not asking about what amenities. I'm asking how are we identifying those amenities in concert with local communities. I think that applies to all the sites. So I'm more asking about the process, not the specifics of what we're going to be building.
Again, through the chair, that's the development review process. So that's not the policy that's before us today that's setting up the frame on how to build housing. Those specifics are considered through the development review process.
So when you say development review process, does that mean the one community consultation that happens for a development is the only moment in time that community members will be able to have a voice? And usually by that time, a lot has already been decided and designed.
Through the chair, and thank you, Councillor. I believe there will be more opportunity. First off, this framework is positioning such that we can report a prioritized list of opportunities through planning and housing. That will begin to identify sites that are essentially being focused on. From a community consultation perspective, typically when we are advancing affordable housing opportunities, we have a robust engagement process where we are engaging community and councillors, of course, as well. So that approach hasn't changed or will not change. When we are advancing affordable housing opportunities, I assure you that the Housing Secretariat has a robust engagement process.
So we won't be waiting for the development review one consultation to hear from the community about potential amenities. There will be earlier opportunities for community members to speak into that process. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Perks, Councillor Perks? Yeah. So you're speaking last, Councillor Perks? Okay. Mayor Chow to speak.
Second day of a long meeting at council. We have this report in front of us. It's incredibly important. It's transformational, in fact, because Councillor Deputy Mayor Morley asked that question. What was it like then to build housing? Toronto built 32,000 units of housing. I am older than most of the staff here, so I remember the joy of people getting the keys in their hands and being able to move in to a unit of housing. Unfortunately, the last one that was built was Older Women's Network on Esplanade in the mid-90s. I was the councillor at that time. It was the last one. And after that, because the federal and the provincial government and city government after that canceled all programs, so not much got built. We're seeing the impact of it on our street. There is now a complete sea change. Councillor Chinnis Lin, before you came, you were a school board trustee, you were the chair of the board. And you know how long this school board have been talking with the city about coming together to build schools and build housing. And you may remember, you weren't here at the time, but in 2023, in November, the city approved it's called a generational transformation program to build more affordable housing urgently. It identified ways to build 65,000 units of rental housing. What this is in front of you is now, what do we do next? Okay? That provided a blueprint. It set a target. It set a goal. It said that here is our journey to get there. At the meantime, many councillors and myself and all the city staff came together and said, okay, how do we do this? We came to a principle that we are stronger together. How do we do that? You notice that there are 3 deputy city manager working together. They work together as a team. You see Create TO there, and you also see TCHC coming together, and of course Sean, okay, the CEO is here. And then, of course, the housing secretariat. So you're seeing everybody coming together with a single purpose to build housing, affordable housing, urgently. These recommendations in front of you lay it out how we will get there. And the core of it is something called Canada, Ontario, Toronto Builds. It's a program. Why is this important? Because often, little city of Toronto will try to build. We don't have all the money. You've heard this before. And then we have a project and we go to the federal government. Can you approve this project and that project? And it takes forever, a long time. So a few months ago, we finally signed a memorandum of agreement with the federal government that $7 billion is going to be put aside for low-cost financing to build affordable housing and housing. Okay? And we were able to fast-track $2+ billion of projects out, and there was another $4 billion left. So this actually also then identified how we're going to do that. Just last night, your city manager and myself went and had a dinner with the board of CMHC, the board of directors. And we were talking about how we could work together through CMHC and with the housing minister, which we're going to be meeting next week in Ottawa, to come up with a plan. Because you notice the new Liberal government plan is to build a lot of housing as fast as possible, and many of them affordable. So the stars are aligned between the federal and the provincial government and us. And the provincial government also said that if you look at the budget that was just passed, not passed yet, but was introduced, there's $5 billion of building affordable housing and long-term care, etc. How they would distribute it, we don't know. And I do know that the province of Ontario, Premier Ford, wants to build housing faster, as fast as possible. Right? So we thought, okay, we're ready. So what we're doing here, I'm running out of time. What we're doing here is say that we have the land, we have the people, we have the expertise, we have the experience, we have a little bit of money, and we will partner with you. And in this report, there's Kipling, Borough, and Yonge Street. There are 3 projects. In here, it tells you how all of these projects will move forward, and with great speed and with flexibility. So stars are aligning. We will work together because we are stronger together, and we're finally signing an MOU with this school board where we could all develop schools and communities plus housing together. So it's a wonderful, great news. Recommendations in front of you. This report is very, very important. So thank you. I know it's late at night, but thank you for hearing me out about why this is critically important. Because all the folks here, of course, under our leadership of city manager, are really coming together to build housing urgently. And we thank them for doing that.
Thank you. Councillor Candeval to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Like Mayor Chow articulated, we're in a fortuitous and opportune time with the commitments shared by the federal government, promises from the provincial government, and the alignment with this framework gives us hope, and it gives us a sense of vision on how we do housing in the city of Toronto. So I agree, there's a lot of excitement, tempered with the desire for greater clarity on certain details which will inevitably develop. And I know, for example, the governance piece is coming back later this year. So it's with earnest interest to see how it evolves. And of course, it's in the details. And I think, for example, one piece that has great interest with a lot of communities, and we're seeing that in the current discourse around the condo market, is unit size and unit mix. And I think that will be an important piece to how this unfolds, both from policy and in particular development review. So that's one thing I'll be looking forward to. The other, as Councillor Chang rightfully spoke to, is the need for community amenity, community benefit, and the necessary relevant infrastructure that comes with it. This is a pervasive, perennial question we see in my community, which has seen approvals along the Golden Mile, Kennedy Crossing, or Scarborough Junction, which has created a lot of consternation and questions on amenity, on what is complete community. So I know we use the term a lot, but everyone will be looking to see, are we fulfilling that in letter, not just in letter, but in spirit. So that's another key pillar of what community and us as councillors are looking for as this unfolds with all the hope, etc. And finally, how we work with school boards and school land is of interest to many within the city, because they represent the most critical social, institutional infrastructure in any community, the space we provide young people, especially children. And in a city that's increasingly becoming polarized by income and inequality, we've got to ensure we're not infringing on the quality of those spaces by virtue of our intention to provide more housing, that we don't throw the baby with the bathwater. So that's something that'll be critical for how these initial projects unfold, that we're ensuring the interests of children and our littlest ones are protected and we're serving their interests. So I'll conclude by reiterating the hope behind this model, especially in light with what the federal government is going to unfold and how we reposition or adapt or adopt to their frameworks. So thank you, staff, mayor, and planning and housing for this ambitious and certainly interesting project, and looking forward to it unfolding. Thank you.
Hi, Speaker. I'd like to...
Councillor Moyley to speak.
I can't get on CMP. I'd like to be added, please.
Okay, we'll put you on. Councillor Moyley to speak. Go ahead. Oh.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. And I just want to acknowledge the work of staff on this, and thank you guys so much for bringing this report forward. As someone who had the great privilege of growing up in cooperative housing in our great city. I am proud to stand before you all as a member of City Council, and it's thanks to the stability and access that my family was able to tap into as my mom raised my brother and I here in this incredible city. But I would not be here if I didn't have a stable place to call home through my upbringing. And we heard earlier, we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've talked about safety. We talked about all kinds of interconnected challenges that we work very hard together to try to solve. And whether it's mental health and addiction pouring out into our streets, lack of access to social services, so much that we cannot control. But what we do know, and the social determinants of health tell us very clearly, is when people have access to safety, to shelter, and to the basic needs, we can all be better supported to meet our potential. And that's really what we're here being able to achieve together as a city with these ambitious goals, with a clear policy framework, and thanks to the leadership of our mayor, our city leadership, and again, staff who've been doing this work. I look forward to supporting this, but I do want to call out some realities as well. As an elected official, I have my values personally, but I also have a community that I'm very proud to represent, and there are many challenges that we continue to navigate. So as we move forward with these ambitious goals, we do need to be mindful of the impact on existing communities, and we do need to be mindful of the impact on things like small businesses that are the lifeblood of these communities. I know when this came through PHC, I heard from my local community, specifically our local BIA, where some of these lands are there, and the compound impact of what it would look like to lose, for example, the parking for customers and for folks who work at these businesses. So while I am in full support of this path forward, and I look forward to us actually doing something about the things we always talk about, which I think is what people need and deserve to see from their elected officials, I do want to ensure that we continue to be deeply intentional with our community engagement, with our consultation, and also just with our planning, again, to contemplate, we don't want to deliver on something while taking away something else and creating other problems down the road. So I wanted to just name that very clearly, and I look forward to my continued deep engagement with staff and my local community to get to the best outcomes for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Malik to speak.
Thank you very much. I have a motion. It is with clerks. It is about a specific site in my community. It's John Avenue. And the motion in front of us will help formalize the relationship with an operator for one of the key and highlighted sites in this report. And the report demonstrates a tremendous amount of work, and I too want to thank staff for pulling this together. Every single council meeting, as we should, we speak about housing. It is our shared priority, and we have taken an incredible focus on not just, facing the crisis, fully, but also working with every tool that we have to get through this, thanks to the leadership of Mayor Chow and our commitment aligned from one end of the city to the other on council. And we know that this crisis persists, and it is an outcome of many choices over many years that we are continually working away at. And I know that also as city councilors, and particularly in my downtown community, where we have a majority of renters and where we feel the housing crisis in a very specific and acute way, there is a patchwork of projects that do leave us asking questions about what are the requirements for the programs that will help us achieve the outcomes that we're looking to get. How do we stay laser focused on those outcomes? And setting citywide cross-programmatic targets and requirements is really critical in order to continue to make the progress that we know we desperately need. I've also seen a lot of things outlined here that have been piloted in my community, collaboration with the TDSB and the Toronto Lands Corporation on sites to be able to maximize building complete communities, TCHC revitalization, and of course, tri-governmental collaboration with entities like Waterfront Toronto. And I'm excited for some of these things to be expanded citywide. as we realize our commitment to affordable housing, to purpose-built rental. And I encourage our agencies and corporations to join us in this work and to adopt the Toronto Builds framework. And as always, encourage other levels of government to be partners with us, to be shoulder to shoulder with us in this, to help mobilize all of our resources and our levers, our permissions, our legislation to build necessary, affordable housing for the long haul together. And through the Canada Ontario Toronto Builds program, we demonstrate how that can be done. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to put the motion back on the screen.
Just flashed the wrong one.
Flashed.
You put up the wrong one before.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Perks, you have a question? Okay. All right, so Councillor Myers to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just would like to display my motion that I've worked on with staff and I've pre-circulated. I don't need to speak on it, but I do need to say that I need to go shortly as I have to catch a flight. So I just want to make sure that we have quorum because I have to go in like the next 10 minutes.
Thank you for telling us while we're sitting here in the council chambers.
Yes,
Very
I'm
nice
actually
of you.
overseas and it's 3 a.m. here.
Yeah.
So I'm doing my best.
Okay,
but
what's his
what,
can you put his motion on the screen so he can get his flight? Okay, any questions on that? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Perks to speak. The last speaker.
Okay, I was going to give a whole big thing about how great this is, but in order for Councillor Myers to meet his flight, I'm just going to say I endorse the motions from both him and Councillor Malik, or Deputy Mayor Malik. There you go. Did I have a motion? Oh, I did. Whoops. Oh, no, I don't.
Okay.
No, I didn't. No.
He doesn't. Okay,
Unless,
thanks.
sorry, am I missing something?
No, I don't know. It's on the screen that you have
No, that's
a motion.
Councillor Myers' motion.
But that's okay. That's okay. Okay, let's put the motions on this.
Okay, I forgot. Yeah, Councillor Carroll, who couldn't stay for the rest of the meeting, had to do this one piece about a very specific issue in her ward. Okay?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's put the motion. Pardon? Which motion? Okay, well, Councillor Perks, can you answer the question on behalf of Councillor Carroll?
I'm going to do my very best.
All right.
One first, where's the language that refers to a specific site?
Without, the motion itself does not, but it solves a problem on a specific site. And I don't know that that site has been publicly identified yet.
So is this a reference to recommendation 14?
Yes.
Is recommendation 14 to a specific site?
No.
So then this is not
here's my dilemma, Councillor Candival. Okay? As you know, with some of these sites, there are property matters, and we get confidential attachments at various stages that show what those sites are, but we can't identify those properties in public session. Okay? The wording here is very specifically tuned to solve a problem on one of those sites which I can't name. Okay?
Where is the guarantee that this is in reference to one particular site and not directing the DCM to apply this to all sites?
Look in my eyes. Look in my eyes.
That's not an answer with all due respect,
That's the answer you
Gord.
get in public session.
No, this is a
if you want to
legitimate
go
question.
in camera,
How do we know this is not applicable to all sites?
Well, Councillor Candival,
Yeah.
if I can just clarify,
This is a substantive question.
No, but hold on. Well, just, it says recommendation 14 is specific to that item.
Then add a ward number or say within whatever Councillor Carroll's ward is. Because this reads as impacting all sites.
No, it says recommendation 14.
Yes, which is not site specific. So if you pull up recommendation 14.
Okay, you know what? Vote
I'd
no.
rather defer this.
The best I can offer you is if you feel this is bad public policy,
I think it's
then vote no.
unclear public policy. This
And I
recommendation
understand
14 is not site specific.
Okay, okay.
I understand that's what you think. Yes,
Well, we're
I know
not
that.
gonna-
It's not what I think, it's what is written in recommendation 14.
Okay, we're not going to come to a solution here.
Go ahead, Lily.
Okay, Councillor Cheng, did you have a question now? Okay.
Could this apply to other sites? Because I think I would welcome the opportunity to explore potentially working with co-development opportunities of sites that are adjacent to our land. So is this something that we would entertain at large? If there's a site that hasn't been developed yet right beside and there's a...
So,
would
there
this
are,
apply?
yes. You have from, I'm forgetting the date of the report, it's one of the earliest ones, a list of 90 potential sites. We also know which sites the Toronto Lands Corporation has. All members of council have all the information they need to go talk to the affordable housing staff and say, what is the status of this site and are there opportunities? And I would like to be part of that conversation. Further, if a site is moving forward, a report is generated naming that site with often a confidential attachment, so you get that document as well. Finally, if any site is moving forward that requires a change in use, and a school site is an example of that, it would require a planning approval. So there would be a report to the Planning and Housing Committee naming the site and launching the public consultation. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 opportunities to get involved, to find ways of helping to shape that project and helping to have your community be part of the conversation.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Councillor Moyes, you have a question too. Maybe Councillor Perks may ask Councillor Carroll to bring it up another time.
Speaker, I'm sorry, I took carriage of this.
I know.
As you know, Councillor Carroll is unwell and unable to participate for the rest of the meeting.
No, I understand.
I can't tell you right now that we get where we need to get if we don't include this piece.
Okay,
so my strong advice to council is to support this motion.
Okay, Councillor Moyes has a question for you.
And
Councillor
Councillor Perks, I just want to just reiterate that the last sentence in this motion states, in consultation with the local councillor.
Yes, it does.
So
you're absolutely correct. You have read the motion correctly.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to state.
Thank you. And we're going to lose quorum. We might have to defer the rest of the agenda. Let's put the motions up. Motion by Deputy Mayor Malik, all in favor? Carried. Next. Which one? Councillor Candeval, I would suggest you sit down and listen and you know what you're voting on. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next motion. Next motion. Motion by Councillor Myers. It's on the screen. On favor, carried. Okay. Motion 2. Motion 3 by Councillor Perks. Is that the one you want a recorded vote? Is that fine? On favor? You want a recorded vote? Okay, recorded vote.
Laptop died, so I'm going to have to give my votes verbally from now on.
Okay. All right, recorded vote on this.
Councillor Candival, please.
Councillor Fletcher, what is so funny?
Councillor Fletcher, please, your vote. Councillor Myers, how do you vote, please?
Affirmative.
Councillor Perks, how do you vote, please? Yes. Councillor Fletcher? Motion 3 carries. The vote is 17-1.
Item is amended on favor. But there was a race there, eh? Recorded vote.
Councillor Crisanti, Councillor Candival, please. Councillor Cole. Councillor Holiday, are you able to vote in the system?
Councillor Myers, how do you vote, please?
In favor.
Councillor Perks, please. The item is amended as adopted. The vote is 17-1.
Okay, guys, we only have 3 more items. CC 30.4, Deputy Mayor Malik, you held it down.
Yes,
this
it's a
fall.
quick release from me.
Pardon?
It's a quick release from me.
I can't hear you.
It's a quick release.
On what? What? We're at CC 30.4. Yeah, okay. Councillor Candival, put your name on the screen if you have a question.
Madam Speaker, I have to go. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor
Bye.
Candival, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a bit of understanding timeline-wise when the MZO came through, what was the context for when the city report was going to come to council?
Through the Speaker, the MZO was received by, the MZO was issued in May of 2024. At that time, the city had not concluded its review of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications in front of us. That concluded the city's review.
And is that document that was in progress, is that public in any way?
Through the Speaker, city staff provided an update report to Toronto and East York Community Council in April of 2023, documenting the status of review at that time.
Right. So that's publicly available, correct?
Correct.
On the question of the parking spots that the province, from what I understand, is looking for, what's the current status of that question?
Through the Speaker, there is a technical table of provincial staff and city staff that has been established to explore options for parking at Exhibition Place. The group met a number of times in 2024. It has not met since the fall. The current status is that the province is doing due diligence on its options, and a decision is expected sometime later this year.
I think constituents and residents are asking the question, certainly to our office, is have we made a decision on those lands? And B, do we have the ability to deny or permit those spots?
Through the Speaker, Councillor, you're referring to the EMZO lands?
The 1800 parking spots?
Through the Speaker, any decision to utilize land at Exhibition Place for parking would be a council decision and the subject of a future City Council report.
Do we have a timeline on that report?
At this time, through the Speaker, at this time, we do not have a sense of that timing.
Was there any, and pardon my ignorance on this, was there any conversation of an EA during the before, after, or right, other before the MZO?
Through the Speaker, if the councillor could clarify the question, NEA with respect to what specifically?
To the former Ontario Place lands and the adjoining water bodies.
Okay, through the Speaker, I understand the question better now. So there was an environmental assessment undertaken for the public realm component of the Ontario Place initiative that EA was undertaken by Infrastructure Ontario on behalf of the provincial government.
Has the province or Therme committed to any current or ongoing or future financial contributions to the city, whether it's revenue sharing, programming, as a condition?
Through the Speaker, I'm not aware of any such discussion.
So for clarity, there aren't any public commitments to financial contributions to the city?
Through the Speaker, not that I'm aware.
This is here as a receipt item. Councillor Candival, you're aware of that, right?
Yeah.
It's here for receipt.
It's a status, yeah.
Yeah,
Status
okay,
update.
thanks.
Are there...
that was your last, okay, one more question.
Jeez. What, at this point, is there any clarity on any public benefits coming out of the project that may be in partnership or available to the City of Toronto?
Through the Speaker, the staff report on page 5 describes some public benefits that are framed in the enhanced minister's zoning order that was issued in 2024. The other thing that the report covers is that the opportunity to secure public benefits through the Planning Act does not exist because there is no current Planning Act application before the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, that's it. Okay, Deputy Mayor Malik, you held the item down.
On a point of order?
Councillor Mantis,
Councillor
point of
Mantis.
order.
Madam Speaker, since we only have 15 members and we don't have quorum, could we defer the rest of the items and adjourn?
Well, we just,
Because we can't make any decisions.
I think, yeah, because this, really this item is here as a receipt item and it's 9:15. So maybe we just want to defer the rest of the agenda. Well,
Because we don't have quorum.
yeah. So before we do that, Deputy Mayor Malik, your motion MM 30.41, you want to just move that before we adjourn?
Sure. I'm moving receipt of this item that's in front of us.
Pardon?
I'm moving receipt of the item in front of us.
Okay, so we'll move receipt of that. Do your members motion, you move that?
Yes.
Okay, on favor, carried.
We can't even vote on that.
We do have quorum, Counselor.
We don't. There's only 15. Burnside, Peruzza, and the Myers were the last ones that left. We were 18 with Councilor Myers.
I'm here. Let the clerk do his job.
Okay.
Sorry, why isn't 15 quorum?
We need 18.
Okay. No, I know, just one sec. Okay, CC 30.4, Deputy Mayor Malik has moved receipt. So can we vote on it? On favor? Carried. I know I am, but I don't know who has called me. MM 30.41, Deputy Mayor Malik, you'd like to move your member's motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay, on favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Point of order, Councillor Perk.
I move that we defer all remaining items to the next meeting.
What there's,
We're losing quorum. People like Rachel just left. I'm sorry, you want to come back tomorrow? That's the other option.
no, hold on, oh, please. Please, Councillor
really?
Candaval, can you sit,
You want the meeting
please?
to fall apart without decision.
Councillor Candaval, just sit. Yeah, just one sec. Well, hold on. On Councillor Perks, on MM 30.6, I know that you amended it, which were about, but it's my understanding that Councillor Cheng held it down. So Councillor Cheng, can we release it? Councillor Cheng, can we release it? Councillor Cheng, do you want to release it?
Yes, fine, we can release it.
Okay, okay, MM 30.6. Oh, Councillor Holiday, okay, then let's just defer the rest of the agenda then. Yeah. Councillor Perks moved a motion that we defer MM 30.6 and MM 30.19. Those are the two items. We're in the middle of a vote. Councillor Holiday?
I want to speak to the deferral. So 30.6 is time sensitive, and the act of deferral makes it not effective. So I'm not supporting deferral. I don't know what the problem is in getting two items done.
Councillor Chang.
That's what we're here for.
Chang wants to have a debate on it.
Well, shit, that's her right. I'm not really, now we're having a debate on the deferral. But Madam Speaker, I'm not really sure what the problem is, where everyone's in a rush to not deal with a time-sensitive item. I'm not supporting the deferral.
There you go. Let's vote. Let's vote.
Yeah. Okay, let's just defer the two items. Okay, let's just vote on the motion to defer MM 30.6 and MM 30.19. Recorded vote.
Councillor Moyes, your vote, please.
Councillor Crisanti, please.
The deferral motion carries. The vote is 10-5.
Mayor, I think for the next time for us to extend is not a good idea because some councillors are very impatient. So maybe we should just end at 6 o'clock and come back the third day. Well,
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
members, before I ask for motion, before I ask for a motion to enact the general bills, may I have a motion regarding the consideration of submissions on zoning bylaw and official plan amendments? Moved by Councillor Morley. Councillor Morley, if you can read it on the screen. Okay, just a sec. There you go.
Happy to move. The committee and council consider the submissions in making a decision on zoning bylaw and official plan amendments.
All those in favor? Carried. May I have a motion to introduce the general bills? Councillor Fletcher, do you want to do that one? Okay, there it is.
431 and 449 and 551,
I have her mic on.
and 483. Thank you.
It's just that you have the mic on the side.
Okay.
Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? On favor? Carried. Shall these bills be declared as bylaws and be passed subject to Section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006? On favor? Carried. May I have a motion to introduce the confirmatory bills? Mayor Chow.
So move.
No, you have to read it.
Oh, well, put it up. Here we go. That leave be granted to introduce bills to confirm to the point of the introduction of this motion the proceedings of City Council Meeting 30 on May 21st, 22nd, 2025.
Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? On favor? Carried. Shall these bills be declared as bylaws and be passed subject to Section 226.9 of the City Toronto Act 2006? On favor? Carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to members of council.